Good morning, everyone, and good afternoon, and welcome to another author interview here on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. I'm your host, Gabriel Garcia, otherwise known as the Wandering Quill and the Wandering Scribe. And joining us today is an author making their official debut here on the show. Now, my guest today is a midwestern girl living out her life of adventures with two fur babies and a doting husband. When she's not writing or reading, you can find her playing video games or board games with the love of her life, Davy. She started writing in high school in her very first creative writing class and has never truly stopped. And when she first met her husband, she had been working on a werewolf story for over a year. And in her own words, that one isn't ever going to see the light of day. Her
Nope.
best friend, who just so happens to be her sister-in-law, came to her one day and told her that she was planning to write and self-publish her book. She had no idea that a person could do that. And one day, he told her that even if she was scared, she needed to step out of the boat. So she did, and thus here we are. She is one of four writers in her family, and if they can convince her dad to write, then there will be five in the
hmm
family. Her older sister, one of her younger brothers, her sister-in-law, and she are on this crazy journey of self-publishing. And her brother and her also share a podcast called The Author's Chaos Project, where they talk about all things indie author and interview other authors about their current releases or works.
hmm
And in addition to all of that, viewers and listeners, she loves to hike, camp, fish, and be in nature. You can find her in the warm months out in the woods with her husband, enjoying s'mores and some fishing. So, without further ado, let's give a huge Wandering Scribe applause to today's guest, SF Rogers, otherwise known as Sarah. Sarah, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for that introduction. I absolutely love that.
You're welcome, Sarah. You're absolutely welcome. I'm so excited to have you here on the show. I cannot wait to dive deep into your works and learn all about your journey as an author, as well as some of the stuff that you've done outside. So, before we dive in, is there anything else that wasn't covered in the introduction? Because you have done a lot.
I have done a lot. So the introduction says that I have two fur babies. I actually have three. We have a foster dog.
Oh, okay.
Currently she's probably not gonna leave. She's probably gonna stay. So I'm a stay-at-home dog mom now, like take care of my house, all that jazz. But yeah, I now also have a contemporary romance that is out with my alpha team and should be released at the end of this year. So not only do I write fantasy, but I also write contemporary romance.
Awesome. Awesome. And viewers and listeners, this is also a very special interview for our guest today because this week is also going to be the release of one of her series. So, Sarah, would you like to share with our viewers and listeners that series that is coming out this week and what people can expect?
Yes, for sure, for sure. So this is the sequel to my debut novel, Execration of Autumn. It's called Isolation of Winter. It's in the Lilac Cursebreaker series, and it follows Cora on her journey as she leaves the Autumn Court, who she's just released from their curse, and heads toward the Winter Fortress to release them from their curse of isolation. Before she even understands what's happening, her and her dog Gage get separated from her husband, and she has to figure out how to be this all-powerful curse breaker without him there to anchor her. It is a crazy journey. She encounters monsters and new faces, new people that embody the saying, "The enemy of my enemy is my friend."
Ooh.
So it's so much fun. My alphas absolutely loved it. I cannot wait for it to get in your hands, and it releases on the 31st. So
Awesome. So, viewers and listeners, be on the lookout because I'll be providing that link down below for you to go and get yourself a copy. But that's incredible, Sarah. That
thank
is
you.
amazing. And as you mentioned in the beginning, you also write other books for other genres as well.
Mhm.
So, let's just dive right into it. So, what would you consider your definitive aha moment that you really want to be writer? Was it your sister-in-law who gave you the
Mhm.
push, or was there something in the back of your childhood that really pushed you to, pursue the written word?
Mhm. So, when my sister-in-law decided to release her book, my brother told her just nonchalantly, like, "Hey, Sarah's been writing. Like, she has a whole book." And I'll never forget that conversation because she called me and she kind of that sarcastic, "You have been hiding this from me, and I need to understand why." And when you're in your young 20s, late teens, early 20s, there's a lot of people who are really pushing you to do the thing, like find the career that's going to make you money. Um, Authorship won't make you money unless you get
That's the
picked up by
truth.
someone big, like you're never going to make money at it. And while, like, yes, this can be more money draining than money making,
Mm-hmm.
um, I turned I turned 30 and had just this sense of like, why am I not doing more things that I love? Why am I just working and like going to sleep and working some more? And it turned into when she was like, "Hey, I'm releasing this book." I was like, "Well, I could probably do that." And she's like, "Well, come up with an idea." And she sent me a writing prompt. And the writing prompt just said, older character finds out they're curse breaker. They're floored because curse breakers are supposed to be 12, 14 years old. And I sat there and I thought about it a little bit and I was like, well, I read a lot of fantasy romance and romantasy books, and
Mm-hmm.
they follow a lot of women, especially that are 19, 20, 22 years old in that bracket. Well, I wanted to see someone who was married. I didn't want to see someone falling in love. We never get to see like the long-term married couple that's still in love with each other.
Right.
So that was the first thing. And we never really get to see a woman who maybe has a little bit of years under her belt and she makes decisions not in a bratty, I want my way, but in a more mature, like, okay, I have other people around me that I have to think about too. And the story just kind of started falling out. And I remember when they asked me if it would be a series, I said, yes, we're going to follow the 4 seasons. The question that came up was like, well, what if the curses on these courts are why we don't get a fall anymore? What if the
Mm.
curse on the court is why some years we really don't get a winter? Like we'll get cooler weather, but we won't get snow or anything like that. And when you start throwing that in there, you're like, okay, hold on. So if these curses are keeping these courts from providing the service, and the fae aren't able to come and like bring fall or bring spring, that's why you go winter, summer, right? And it
Mm.
kind of to reset the world, right? So with that, I got to explore. She finds out her husband's lying to her, and how do you navigate? Like he's not told you the truth the entirety of your relationship, not just your marriage, the entirety of your relationship. And how do you, as a mature person, handle that kind of betrayal in your marriage?
Mm.
Not that he was cheating or anything, but like he's a fey prince, he's not human, and she didn't know, right? So you like navigating that and then just figuring out who she is as this curse breaker. And then the second book picks up and she's having to now navigate finding herself as the high priestess to these deities that she knew nothing about over a year ago. So the spark for the story was definitely that writing prompt and just being like, okay, these are questions I have. What if we could fix the seasons if she goes and breaks these curses? So like that was the start of the world build. So it's been pretty great. And that all happened at the end of 2022.
My, oh my. Wow. That is incredible, Sarah. And again, you're probably another author that I've had on the show who have written about the Fae, which honestly, I don't see a lot of that in storytelling. So I really do appreciate that. I'll have to get you in contact with my good friend Lori, who's also a talented author who also writes about the Fae and lore of the Fae.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's also some fan questions that I'm going to be asking, which I really would love to hear your insight on. So, as a little starting question to, the beginning of your writer's journey, when you began writing, what was sort of the most challenging aspect of this series that you encountered? Was it the outline? Was it making the atmosphere gripping? Was it the conflicts and the emotional elements? What were some of the challenges of writing this series?
So starting getting the first book off the ground, I'm what's called a pantser. So I don't really outline. I create the characters, basically create the world and the magic system, give them a weapon and tell them, here's the world. Like, go tell me what happens, right? That's kind of how I view my stories. Are definitely, my brother has coined this phrase, they're definitely runaway daydreams, where I just drop them in the world and I go, okay, this is the problem. How do you solve it? And I kind of let the characters lead me in how the story is going. But creating the magic where it was understandable for the readers was probably the hardest part of the world building. Creating the world's easy. Like, you imagine the mountains and the trees and the cities and the crown city and all of that jazz. But like the magic and the way that like the river guardian protects the autumn court while the river spirits help keep the forest in line, right? Like so creating that, like, it feels like Earth, but it is definitely different, was hard. And then explaining her elemental powers, because she can control earth, fire, air, water. One of her favorite powers is to pull water from the air. And she, like, trying to describe that, how she can just, like, it's a humid day, she just pulls the water out of the air and she can make a ball of water with it. That was super hard to convey because I can see it in my mind how she does it. But then the logistics of, like, does that feel like her pulling her hands in? What does that feel like? So that the magic system in the world building was probably the hardest thing for me.
All right, nice. And kind of like a follow-up to that, now for this series and your other stories in particular, do you have a routine or ritual for your journey as an author? Do you spend like a few hours writing? Do you have like a timer with you? Or do you not have a ritual, but you will write if there is a spark of inspiration or creativity?
So I'm undiagnosed ADHD. If you listen to me for any amount of time on our podcast or on TikTok, you will see it. But there are days like this morning, I got up super early and I had the spark, and so I turned on music, sat down, and I wrote. There are other times where I do better in what's called sprints. So I set a 15-minute timer. I write for that 15 minutes.
Okay.
I take like a 5 or 10-minute break, and then I come back and write for another 15 minutes. If I go longer than 15 minutes, I might as well just not have a timer going. I might as well just let my brain just follow the rabbit trail that we're on. But my ritual is definitely, I have to have music playing. So, I have like a vibe playlist, and I'll call it vibes. It's how the book feels in my mind to get me into the mode of like, okay, I'm following this. So the third book that I'm working on right now is the Spring Court is very feudal Japan. They take a lot of their mythology from there. Like, their buildings are set up like feudal Japan, their clothing, all of that. Whereas like the Winter Court is more Inuit based, so igloos and heavy furs and things of that nature. Whereas the Autumn Court is Viking culture, so they carry axes. Like, it's just very, each court has their own individual vibe that they follow. So I go in and I'm like, right now I was listening to the Ghost of Tsushima soundtrack because that
Mm,
music is
choice.
beautiful, but it gets me in the mood to write this Japanese-esque culture that they're now having to navigate to help them. But it definitely music, and then like it just really depends on where my head's at the moment.
Awesome. Okay. And this is actually the follow-up question, which is probably my favorite question in this part of the interview for, the creation of the story. So walk me through it. So you're now writing the initial rough draft of the first book in this series. And when you were writing the first draft, what were the goals you had going into this new series that you were creating as the author, but also keeping in mind the promise you're making to your future readers?
Oh gosh. So I as I was writing, I knew I wanted to write the story that I wanted to see.
Mm.
So I wanted to see an older female main character. I wanted to see someone who, like I said earlier, had a little bit more life under their belt and more wisdom in their decisions. I also wanted to see someone who more represented me in the fact that she was clumsy and she didn't get all the things right off the bat. Like there's one scene in Execration of Autumn where she comes out of the training grounds and like her face is bruised because she's caught a
Ooh.
punch to the face. And like you don't really see that in a lot of training montage. Like they'll fall out of the sky because they're trying to learn how to fly, but you don't really see them like she's limping, she's gotten her tail handed to her, she's
Right.
trying. But I really wanted to like show that she is very human. She may be powerful. She may have all these blessings on her from her patron deity Nightshade, but she is still human and she is flawed. And she does
Mm.
have wrath is her main magic from her blessing with
Mm.
Nightshade. So she reacts in anger a lot quicker than most people. So my promise, like to my readers, was that she wouldn't always just be this hair trigger, I'm gonna blow up at everything. That eventually over time she will learn, deep breath in, deep breath out, I can handle this, I don't have to blow up. Because in the first 10 chapters of Execration of Autumn, they're treating her like a ticking time bomb, like she's going to
Ooh.
blow up. And she's like, I may blow up, but I need you all to still treat me like I'm normal. Like I don't know what's happening in my life. Like I don't understand. And I wanted to convey that very well, that like, and she says it over and over and over again. She's like, I haven't been here very long. I don't understand. Explain this thing to me, please. Like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't know how this works. So like the promise that I made about Cora was that she would be relatable. Women especially could read her and say, oh, I would have had that same reaction.
Right.
Oh, I would have done this the exact same way. Or, oh, I see where she's overreacting. I see where she's being over dramatic about this thing, but really she's bothered by that and she's taking it out on this. And I just wanted her to be so relatable. So
Awesome. That actually kind of leads into some other fan questions, which I don't usually ask this much, but I think this is perfect. So, for the main character in particular, one of my viewers asks, what were sort of the inspirations for the character, and how did you go about making them feel authentic, that they make sense to exist in the world that you have created, as opposed to they feel out of place, that they don't belong in the world that they're supposed to be a part of?
okay. So the one thing about Cora that everyone, and even the characters say this, but my alphas and betas and my arc readers have said this, Cora adopts strays. So she collects people as friends. She has a very magnetic personality. And
Ah,
we're going
okay.
to you'll find more out about why she's so magnetic in the second and third books, but people can't help but love her. And she's genuine. She's very straightforward and to the point. Yes, she reacts on her wrath and rage quite a bit, but she is also, when she gives her heart, she gives it fully. And if she's telling you, hey, like, I care about you, I want to make sure you're taken care of, I want to make sure that you have everything that you need, like, she means it. And the characters, I wanted to write her to where she's adopting these people, because it's what I do. I see other authors, I see people who maybe don't have a community, and I want to get them in somewhere, even if they don't stick around with me, but they meet other people. I wanted her to be that, like, you read her and you're like, oh, I could be friends with her. Like, I could see her, like, seeing past my flaws. And there's even a line in the second book where her patron deity says, he's like, I don't think you can win this person over. And Cora just jokingly goes, well, I adopt strays, so if she needs people, like, I'll end up doing it. And she ends up meeting this person, and this character is very, very harsh. She's very secluded. She keeps to herself, and she meets Cora, and Cora is an enigma because Cora's not scared of her. Cora's not, Cora's willing to go toe to toe with her and be like, hey, I don't care what you are. Like, I don't care. And this other character ends up telling her, she's like, I have become infatuated with you and you're stuck with me. Like, this is the thing. So I just wanted people to be able to see Cora and be like, oh yeah, I could be friends with her. And she so lightly based on me, based on several other women in my life who also have that magnetic personality where, like, they walk in a room and people just see them. Like, they just know that's a person I can talk to. And that has always been brilliant to me, is watching people move through a room and the room seems to revolve around them. And that, like, that's what I wanted for Cora. I wanted her to have this magnetism that, like, when she walks into the wedding gala in the first book, that the Fae notice her. She's not just another human. They can see something about her is different. And that's what I wanted to convey pretty well. And I think I did a good job. I try not to, like, I don't want to brag too much on myself because I am just a little kid from the Midwest, but, like, I did want to convey that pretty well.
Awesome, Sarah. Awesome. And also, since all of your stories revolve around, like, the seasons, it actually leads perfectly to another two-part question. So for all of your books and the books yet to come, how do you make your world feel immersive? And what techniques do you use as a writer to really bring about the senses, especially, for the autumn season, for the winter season, summer and spring? How do you truly make your reader feel as if they're in that world?
So one of the things about my writing that I will say I do that I've noticed a lot of people don't is incorporating the smells. So okay. I actually have PR boxes for both the first and second book with soap that's scented like the main characters. So I have Cora and Jim, which are the female and male main character, and then Nightshade, which is her patron deity for the first book. And then for the second book, we have a character named Dahlia, a character named Sinatomac, and a character named Tulok. And they're all different scents. I lean pretty heavy on describing the way things look. So like the trees or the mountains. There's one point in the second book where they enter this chasm, and I describe what's called the Weeping Rock. And it's where water runs out of two holes in the face of this rock. And it makes it feel otherworldly while also keeping them in this place of like, oh, this is totally different than where I live. This is totally different than whatever. And when you hear that Nightshade's voice sounds like melted chocolate, but he also smells like melted chocolate, it just puts more of a description in your mind of like, okay, he's smooth. Like, I get this. He's he's a smooth type of guy, and he really is. So I incorporate try to incorporate the five senses into what Cora is feeling, seeing, smelling, and hearing within the things around her. So when she first crosses over into the autumn court, she describes it like going from a chilly day to a balmy autumn day. Like it's just coming up to that more crisp part of fall when she gets there. So you're still kind of warm, still kind of can start in boots and a scarf in the morning, but then by the afternoon, like you ditch the scarf, right? Like that type of day, but describing that heat and then describing on the wind, like the smell of cedar and bonfire, or however I described it, but like trying to incorporate those senses to make it feel like you're right there with her. So
nice. That's incredible. And honestly, Sarah, you're probably the second author that I've had on the show who have used some form of either like soap or candles to really help showcase their world. And I think that's actually really cool and beautiful. And I think that is an aspect of business that not people really consider, which is something that we'll be touching on when we get to the business portion of being an author. But then now going back to the timeline, the journey, this leads to another really important question, because I think all of us have encountered this part in one way or another, and that is making the decision to let other people in. And what I mean by that is telling people what we're working on. Because as authors, and I'm sure you will definitely agree, being in a family of writers, we get involved in our projects, and sometimes we don't want to tell people what we're working on until it is completed. But that may be different for a lot of people. They may want to tell them right from the get-go what they're working on. So for you, Sarah, at what point on your journey did you feel confident that you could tell people what you're working on? And ultimately, what has been the reaction like from friends and family?
So because of my sister-in-law and because of like her being like, do it scared, when I started Execration of Autumn, I'm going to tattle on myself right here. I started handwriting it. I had a pad of paper, and I was sitting out on my back porch and like looked out. We've got woods back behind our house, and I looked out at those woods and was like, well, what if the Fey realm butts up to the human realm everywhere that wilderness meets society? Like, what if that is where the Fey realm borders are? And I started handwriting it, and I texted her, and I was like, well, started my story. And she's like, hey, put me on the Google Doc. And I'm like, girl, I'm writing this in a notebook. And she was like, put it in a Google Doc so I can read it. And so it was like, I think I had 2 chapters written when I shared it with her. But then as it went on, I got to chapter 5 or 6 and was going back and editing as I was going. So like I was writing it really slow because it was going back to like chapter 1 and editing, and chapter 2 and editing. And then I'd go back to chapter 1 and edit some more. And my brother had just released his book, and he was like, just get your first draft done and then you can edit. And I was like, but it needs to be. And he's like, if you edit chapter 1 and 2 now till the thing's done, he goes, it's going to be top heavy edited here and not done up on the end. And I was like, you know what? You're right. I cannot go back and edit. I cannot do this. I need to just keep moving forward. So I went through and I finished the first draft. And then my sister-in-law was like, you need to send it to a couple of trusted people to read. And I was like, nope. She goes, someone has to read it. And I was like, fine. So I had a friend from high school who was like, hey, I would love to support you. Let me read it. Like, I'll tell you if I see anything that's glaringly wrong, whatever. Her kindness and her blunt appraisal of my story made me more confident in like, there are going to be things you write that people don't like.
Mm-hmm.
There are going to be things that I write that people are going to get it and they're going to go, yeah, this isn't for me. There are going to be other things that I write that someone picks up and they're like, this, is the best contemporary romance I've ever read. It's so fun. It's so cute. Like it, whatever, right? If I would not have had that bravery after that first draft was done to reach out to her and have her read it, I don't know that I would have moved forward with like eventually doing ARC reads and then also doing like I did advanced reader copies. And then I also had a beta team that like went through the first story and like told me when there was plot holes and things of that nature, which was great. I don't regret any of that, but I don't think without her being like, hey, just give it to me. I won't rip you apart, but I will kind of go through your story and make sure it flows. Without her, I wouldn't have been brave enough to just get it to people. And then on top of that, when I got some really crappy or really crummy feedback, a bunch of my author friends stepped up and they were like, that's not your reader. That's why they didn't understand. Like, her complaints are things that someone who's not read fantasy would not understand. So like if you're a sci-fi person and you try to get into Lord of the Rings, there are discrepancies that like you're not going to vibe with, right? Just like if you are strictly a dragons person and you try to go watch Firefly, you're not going to, it's not going to make any sense, right? Like if you don't know anything about science fiction. So hearing that was like, made me even more brave enough to be able to say, okay, yes, there are going to be people who don't like this, but I can still send it out and there will be people who do. So.
Yes, that is very, very true, Sarah. And you touched on quite a few things, which is, handling negativity and harsh criticism. And this also kind of leads into a little brief question, which is, handling edits and rewrites in terms of, making sure your voice stays true, because edits and rewrites are essential. But I definitely think among the many things we authors dread, that is one of them, because we are afraid that our voice is going to change. And I would say, yes, our voice is going to change, especially if, let's say, you began writing this book back, let's say, 20 something years ago, back, let's say 2010, but you now decide to pick it back up in 2020. That's 10 years. Your reading is going to be different. Your writing style is going to be different. And the ideas that you had originally are going to be very different. So ultimately, the question is, Sarah, how do you handle that aspect of the writer's journey? And even with the edits and the rewrites from friends and family, you're able to still stay true to your initial author voice.
So one thing that my sister-in-law and I talk about a lot is reader perspective. Every reader is going to have different things in your story that they pick up on. I am a Sarah J. Maas fan. Like, I've read a majority of her work. I just finished the Throne of Glass series. And there are things that I picked up in that series that my sister-in-laws didn't, and vice versa, right? So one thing that I try, hold on just a second. One thing that I try to do is keep in mind that, like, not always that you have 50 ARC readers sign up for your story. And you send out those 50 ARCs, and we kind of gauge it. Out of those 50, you may get 25 reviews,
Yes.
That's on the high side, right? Out of those 25 reviews, you may have 10 that are I DNF'd at the halfway point, I couldn't finish it, whatever. Those reviews help as well because it weeds out the people who may not like your story, right? But of those other 15, you will have readers who say, loved the magic system, loved the found family, would die for it. And then you'll have other readers who say, couldn't understand the magic system. It wasn't explained well enough.
Yes.
And reading is so subjective to the things that you pick up that when you get those negative reviews of like, I DNF'd it, I have this mantra of like, I cannot make everyone happy. I am not tacos, right? Like I'm not chocolate. I'm not tacos. I can't bring joy to everybody, right? But I can to the select few that understand that understand reading or understand fantasy or faith fantasy or however you want to look at it. So when I get negative, I don't read reviews often. I don't think reviews are a space for readers. That's a personal or a space for authors. I do check my Goodreads to see where I'm at. But for the most part, I don't go through and read the individual reviews. Thank you if you have something nice to say about me. I appreciate it. My confidence cannot handle if every review says I'm a shitty author. Okay, like I can't do it. So I don't read a whole lot of reviews. Now I will get messages from ARC readers. Like I got a message from an ARC reader who was like, "Hey, I got to chapter 10 and I just can't continue. I'm so sorry to waste your time." I was like, "You didn't waste my time. Thank you so much. Leave your review. Like be honest about it and leave your review." But I don't expect them to message me and be like, "Hey, I can't continue this on. Like I can't continue on." But also having faith that the things that you write, there are readers who are going to understand you because fantasy is their genre. And like trusting that the reader's going to understand what you're getting at if you maybe aren't the most eloquent in explaining elemental magic or the way a summons works in a castle, right? Like you just have to trust that a majority of readers, especially in a genre, are just going to understand the way things work. So like my dad is a huge science fiction reader. Like he's read all of Ender's Game, like all of the Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. And like, so there are things about sci-fi that when he watches a movie, maybe they don't explain how a teleporter works, but he's read so many books that it just teleports you. That's what it does. And in his mind, it makes sense. For someone who's never read sci-fi, you're like, does it turn you inside out on the way? Like how does a teleporter work, right? So it's leaning pretty heavy on the fact that like most readers, especially within a genre, are going to understand what you're writing and they're going to understand what you're getting at with magic. It's the people who maybe are fresh in a genre who are going to have those, well, this wasn't fleshed out enough for me. Well, what do you mean she read one book and understood all of the magic? Well, sometimes that happens, like that in a fantasy book. Like, so it's just like understanding that readers are all going to have differing opinions. And two, understanding that readers will, like having faith that your readers will understand and will know, like within the genre, what's going on.
Absolutely. And that actually leads into probably one of my favorite questions, and that is, of course, a few opinion questions. And that is, well, context for this question. As authors, as I said in the beginning, it is a very lonely journey in the beginning when it's just us. But when we make the decision to share our work, especially in today's climate, in the digital age, we realize that the industry has changed dramatically in the last 20 years. Yes, we are able to reach out with more people, gain more readers, meet new authors, network, build our brand, what have you. On the other side, we do leave ourselves, unfortunately, exposed to a lot of trolls, hate speech, negativity, and what have you. And all that can be very detrimental to an author's mental health and overall well-being. And of course, as authors, we have always had in one shape or another imposter syndrome. One way or another. It's always been with us. It's always going to be there. And sometimes it will just sit in the recesses of our mind, just waiting to strike. And the anxiety, I've always liked asking these questions for authors, especially who have written a series of books. It is the anxiety to live up to the hype and the expectations people had for the first book and wanting to deliver for books 2 and 3. That can be a lot of stress on the author to deliver. So ultimately, Sarah, this is another two-part question. Throughout your journey as a writer and as an author, have you ever had moments of heightened anxiety or imposter syndrome? And if so, or if not, what has disciplined you to continue being the best author you can be and delivering the story that you want to tell, especially for your series? Because, as I said, it's one thing to write a book that people really enjoy. It's another thing entirely to make the decision to expand upon it and continue building upon the lore and just hoping with fingers crossed that people are going to love the sequel and the third book, fourth book, and how many other books are going to be in the series.
Right. So I was struggling with imposter syndrome this morning, so I can talk very, very candidly about this. And you heard me say it earlier, I think of myself as like, I'm a girl who grew up in the Midwest. I'm literally backwoods Kansas town, now living in Missouri, like, just straight up living my normal everyday life, wanting to take these grand adventures. So writing these books. And it's always the week of a release that I second guess everything that I've done in the story. Oh, did I put too much? Did I introduce too many new monsters? Did I introduce too many new characters? Did I not convey like the relationship between this trio of characters good enough that when Sally, Susie, Raphael reads the book, she understands the way that their dynamic is, right? Like, but I think we all go through that where we begin to question our creativity and was that actually funny or did it just make me laugh, right? And I'm releasing in 2 or 3 days. Like my book comes out in 2 or 3 days and I can't change the manuscript now without having back order issues or having issues with KDP. So I just have to like gut that I'm on the train. The train is not stopping. Like that's where we're at right now, right? Like even though I woke up this morning literally with the thoughts of like, I don't know why I'm doing this podcast. I'm just me. Like what is happening? Like my book isn't even that good, quote unquote. And then I have a group of people that I have surrounded myself with who enthusiastically support whatever decision I'm making. And I don't have to question if they're just pandering to me because they love me or if they really believe in me, because they've shown that. Like I had a friend last Thursday, she took me to lunch because she wanted to celebrate with me the release of the new book and like getting a second book out and like telling me how proud of me she was. That building of community has helped me. Even when those bad reviews come in, I can remember that like, oh, such and such didn't like it, but Sarah did, but Jessica did, but Elia did. And Elia thought that joke was funny. Like I have surrounded myself, and my husband is so like, he's so great. He's such a green flag. He has listened to so many things where I'm like, I don't know if I should do this. Like, can you listen to this passage and tell me if it sounds good? Because I don't think it sounds good. And then he's like, yeah, it sounds fun to me. Like, it sounds like a D&D campaign. And I'm like, okay, perfect. That's perfect. Like, let's go with it. And then there's other times where like, I've come out of my office crying over a character death. And he's been like, you wrote it, change it. And I'm like, I can't change it. It's set in stone. Like it has to happen. So it's just having that support system, like finding the people who are genuinely for you and convincing yourself that like more people are for you than are against you. And a lot of times the people who claim that they're against you or claim that they don't want you to succeed are just jealous because you're doing something that you love to do. So it's just keeping that in mind that like, if you finished a novel, you're in the top 3% of all humanity.
Right.
You're in the top 3% of all humanity if you finished a novel. Like if you finished it, not published, if you finished, top 3%, 97% of people never get to the end of a story. Like put that badge on and wear it, because 3% out of the whole world, like top 3%, come on. Like
yes,
you are in the upper echelons of human beings at this point in my mind. And if that's the badge you have to wear to remind yourself that like my writing is worth it, then wear that badge with honor, because your writing is worth it. Your stories are worth it.
Absolutely, 100%. And this also leads to another opinion question, which I'm
Mhm.
very eager to hear your thoughts on. And that is the case of whether we are in a golden age or an iron age of indie authors. Now, some context for this. So I've been doing this show now for about 6-7 years. I've interviewed a lot of authors. I think just checking on my episodes, out of 400, and I want to say 403, with this being the 403rd episode, I have interviewed 100 and I want to say 71
Dang,
authors to date, which is crazy.
that is
And
insane.
it is, it absolutely is. And within that group, there's a large pool of those authors who began their writing journey back in what I call the COVID years,
Yeah.
2020. And I myself was one of them. I was writing my first book when I was still in graduate school. And as I've talked with them, it dawned on me that the COVID years was a breeding ground for new voices in the publishing industry. And once, things started to lighten up, a tidal wave of new voices entered the industry. And I absolutely love that. I
Mhm.
love that there are new voices. But as time has gone on and new things have entered in the industry, one of which is AI, I began to think of the era that we're in and really decide of whether or not we are in a golden age or are we in a iron age where it's not as shiny as gold, but it's still, a great foundation. So for you, Sarah, in your opinion, from your own experiences, do you believe that we are in a golden age or an iron age of independent creation?
So with our podcast, nearly every author that we've talked to really got their feet underneath of them in 2020. My brother wrote his book while he was he's a teacher, while he was off of school due to COVID in 2020. He started his story then. And it just kind of took off for him, right? Like from there.
Right.
When you first said golden age, my brain went, oh yeah, that's what this is. But the more that you talk, the more like it feels like an iron age, like we're building up to that. With the introduction of AI, it also can take on the view of a dark age, right?
Yes.
And I think that with more people kind of not batting an eye at these authors who are inputting their work into Squibbler and having Squibbler or whatever it's called write their whole story, like, what do you mean you wrote a book in a day and a half? Like,
That's not possible.
there's no way you wrote 160,000 words in a day and a
Nope.
half. There's no way that you wrote and edited that in a day and a half so that you could release this book. Like, do I know authors who write 7,000 words a day? Yes, I know them personally, right? Like,
Same.
they can sit down and write out 6 chapters or 5 chapters a day, but that's not the whole book in a day. And with the more that people are like, oh, it's AI, it's fine. It's fine. I feel like it can get we're going to lose the media literacy of what is indie authorship and what is, I took a prompt and put it in ChatGPT and it gave me a concept, names, a world, a magic system, and then I wrote from there. Well, like, to someone like me, who I just talked about, my whole world building journey, like, all I had for a prompt was older FNC finds out that she's a curse breaker. What happens? That was the prompt. I created everything else. But when you have a robot dictate to you that the castle looks like this and this is how it, like, are you actually writing? No, not in my opinion. You're not. You're not. If you're inputting it into an algorithm and the algorithm is giving you 453 pages worth of story, that's not you. Sorry.
No.
And I think that it can go from very iron almost golden age, because the doors are open. We have all of the
Yeah.
possibility to get our work out. Like, you don't have to pay for an editor if you don't want to, right? If you want to write something that's not polished and publish it, like, for the most part, you can do that. Like, it's, no one's really stopping you, right? Like, and I'm sure you've talked to a lot of people who, like, their work could have probably used 4 or 5 more pass-throughs, right?
Mhm.
Like, I have work that could have used 4 or 5 more pass-throughs, right? Like, I can admit that. But I think in that, you can swing back to more dark ages if people don't take notice of the way AI infiltrates
Mm.
human artwork. And I mean
Yeah.
artwork, from art to writing to music to all of it. Like, if we're not calling that stuff out, it becomes the norm. And it becomes, someone gets my manuscript through an ARC form or through a alpha or beta form. They go in and change a few names, have AI go through it, and they post it on one of those quick sub websites where they then start making money off of characters I created, right? That's, one, not fair to me, because those are characters I created, and two, not fair to anybody who has stepped beside me and said, yes, I want to do artwork for this story. Yes, I want to. I think we're in a place where it could go either way. We could enter a golden age.
Yes.
We could enter a dark ages. We could enter where, if I'm writing open door scenes, my book gets banned from public stores, right? Like, those are real things. Like, or AI starts stealing our work. And we
Yeah.
all know people who've had that happen. Like, we've all seen the websites where they're pirating indie author work. So, like,
Yeah.
I think we're in a really cool Iron Age stage where it can go either way. Like, we could swing either way, just depending on how humans react to all of it.
Yes, absolutely, Sarah. And before we get into the business side of being an author, I just want to say this, and you can actually absolutely use this for your own podcast. If someone ever asks, or like a viewer or fan asks, what is your opinions of using AI in writing? I got this answer from a guest I had not too long ago, and they said, asking AI to write you a book is like asking an alcoholic 7th grader to write the book for you. It's
Right.
not going to be perfect. It's not going to be pretty. You're going to end up rewriting it, and you're going to realize, I should have just written the book
Written this in the
in of
first place.
itself. And also, to add to that, what AI does for publishing, it mass produces a false sense of creativity so that way it could touch more people. And that, I think, is a very, very worrisome thing, especially for us indie authors. And that
Mm-hmm.
actually perfectly leads now into the business side of being an author. So, as some icebreaker questions, who are also fan questions. So, this is another two-parter, Sarah. So, when you began your journey and deciding to publish the first book in your series, what were some aspects of the publishing industry that really surprised you? And also, up to your journey now, what is something you would have done differently in terms of publishing your first book?
Oh, shoot. I would have talked about it a lot more on social media. Like, I would have talked about it a lot more. I would have had more
Same.
posts on
Yes.
Instagram. I would have had more posts on TikTok talking about storyline and development and talking about my characters. And, like, what in-person events have taught me is that the more that you, like, they see your face talking about your work, the more that their brains remember, oh, that's that author of that fantasy romance. I need to go check that out. It's on my TBR. I would have been talking about my work so much more candidly and openly about the frustrations of, like, sitting down and wanting to write and imposter syndrome tells you you can't, or talking about, like, when a character nearly goes off the rails and you have to like reel them back in and go, okay, hold on just a second. You can't do this right now. That needs to come later. Like I would have put my brand, quote unquote, brand out there sooner.
Right.
And even now, like, did I learn my lesson? No, I didn't, because I didn't do enough marketing for Isolation of Winter. Let's be real. I talked about it a little bit. I did not talk about it enough. It is the one place where I wouldn't say fail, but I don't really excel at is talking about it before it's published. Trying to get people's interest in it before we're getting close to publication, because I get so focused on edits that I forget that, like, oh, I need to be drumming up interest in this storyline. I need to be releasing Vibe videos. I need to be basically having a street team do some of this work for me. And I just, because it's out of sight, out of mind, it just doesn't happen like it should. That's the one thing I would change. Like, if I could go back and re-release, I would 1000% say that, like, talk about your work, talk about scenes that are your favorite, talk about characters that are your favorites, why they're your favorites, talk about characters that aren't your favorites. Like, get the name of your book out there, get the names of your characters out there, so that when people see you, they go, oh, she wrote Lilac Cursebreaker. Or, oh, he wrote that, or she wrote that. Like, people see me now, especially local. They've seen me at conventions here, and now they see me out and they're like, oh, you're SF Rogers. You wrote that Fae book that my wife really liked. Yes, tell her the sequel's coming out. Like, but because they saw me at a convention and I stopped them and I talked to them, social media is the same way. If you get your face out there enough, talking about your books, dressed up, however you want to do it, that marketing will help you in the long run to get those ARC readers and to get the release hyped up to where you have like a release day party where people are excited that your work's finally out there and they know what the story's about. Like, not necessarily reading the blurb, but like I told you about the Weeping Rock. That was something simple that I created that I've been talking about to people. So readers have asked me, what chapter is the Weeping Rock in? Like, where can I find that? Oh, that's in the Battle at Frost Peak Chasm. Like, I know what chapter that is. Like, there you go. That's what you're reading to if you want to read about the Weeping Rock, right? Like, but marketing, that's definitely the thing that I would say I wish I would have done differently at the beginning of all of it, was marketing myself and marketing my story.
Absolutely true, Sarah. Absolutely true. And funny enough, that actually correlates with the next question, which is, of course, marketing to our audience. Now, this is another fan question that I would love to hear your thoughts on. So for you as an author, what do you find to be a challenging but maybe easier, marketing to your target audience or marketing to your desired readership?
Oh gosh. I would definitely say the desired readership, because I have I'm on TikTok a lot more than I am anywhere else, right? And I'm in like that 250 to 350 views range on my videos. So those are the people that when the video first goes out, it shows it to, right? I don't have any viral moments. I don't have any of that stuff, but I'm really good about things that make those first 350 people like it, share it, comment, whatever. I am not good about target audience stuff. Like, I struggle in that, because I know my book is fantasy. I know my book has found family. I also know my book has the enemy of my enemy is my friend trope. Like, I know that, but if I'm not talking about it, which goes back to that marketing, how do I find the readers who are looking for found family or older FMC if I'm not marketing toward that? I more market toward, I lean more heavily toward that target audience of, oh, these people know my face. They buy my books and give it to their siblings or their nieces or nephews or whoever, right? Like, so I definitely struggle with the targeted readers instead of just a target umbrella audience.
That is very true. And that's also something that I've also struggled with as well. Like, I go for readers who are just like me, who enjoy the same stories that I do. And especially when it
Mhm.
comes to the readership, they also have their own set of rules and expectations. Like, YA has its own expectations, but let's be honest, some YA stories tend to push NA and AF. AF is adult fiction, viewers and listeners. And sometimes, again, it's a hit or miss depending on what your story is. And for the audience, that is also another beast in of itself, because if you're writing or marketing towards, let's say, audience in the romance, fantasy, or romantasy genre, I have heard horror stories of friends who have written in that genre that, from their own experience, and this is their own words, not mine, it is a very cutthroat genre if you do not deliver, and they will let you know. And this boils down to our voice as an author and what
Mhm.
people expect when we write in said genre, because it's a balancing act. Of
Mhm.
course, as I'm sure you probably talk about on your podcast, Sarah, the author's individuality, but also understanding if you're going to be writing in the genre of, let's say, sci-fi, and go even further, let's say you want to write a story that's reminiscent of Tom Clancy,
Mhm.
your book better deliver. And if your book is not, you don't want to be exactly like Tom Clancy, but invoke that nostalgia
Yep.
of Tom Clancy. If it doesn't deliver, your readers are going to let you know. They will rip you apart. And with that in mind, it's again this idea of, you don't want it to be too original. That's
Right.
going to confuse people. And you also don't want to make it a exact carbon copy of a book that exists.
Right.
Again, it's this balancing act of your individuality, but understanding the stories that you love, but
Mhm.
also the genres you want to write. And I think among the many things that helps with that is networking with other people who help you develop your own voice.
Right.
So ultimately, Sarah, here is the question. For your books in particular, how have you been able to showcase your individuality through your stories? And are there any particular people that you would like to give a personal shout out to who have helped you create your voice, so that people know when they open your book, they know they're reading a novel by S.F. Rogers?
Oh my goodness. So, one of the things people ask me a lot, because I write fantasy romance, I try to stay out of the romantasy because
Mhm.
my main characters are already married. So they're not falling in love. He's not pining for her. They're not enemies to lovers. They're already married, right? So I say my book is a fantasy with romance interspersed. So, like, they have a wedding. Yes.
Yes.
But that's not the main focus of the whole storyline, right? So people ask me if I'm on the same level as like Rebecca Yarros or Sarah J. Maas. And I'm like, please don't go into my series thinking that this is going to be just like that, because it is not in any way, shape, or form. I didn't start reading Sarah J. Maas until my first book was finished, and the second was nearly done when I started my
Mhm.
journey. So because I didn't want people to get into my book and be like, oh, she's copying this other writer, right? But people who have influenced the way my author voice is would definitely be Your Metal Author on TikTok, Elia Golden. She's my best friend. She's the one who pushed me to do all of this in the first place.
Mhm.
And then my alpha readers, Jessica, Ella, and Sarah, they have fallen in love with Lilac Cursebreaker in a way that I never expected anyone else to. And sometimes I think they understand her personality better than I do, which is crazy. But they ask questions. They're my alpha team. They ask questions like, well, why did she have this reaction? And why didn't she say this here? And not always do I go with what they've brought up, but it gets me thinking about another scenario further down the road where she can have a different reaction that's more in line with her personality, more in line with things happening to Cora. But that even goes so far as like one of my villains in the second book yells at the female main character, "That's not fair." And he's basically throwing a fit. And one of my alphas, Jessica, was like, "This feels very childish. Why is he acting this way?" And the two other alphas, Sarah and Ella, came back and they were like, "In the very first book, he's acting like a child. So the fact that he's acting like a child here is spot on who he is as a person. Like this,
Right.
this is without them asking those types of questions or defending those decisions. I wouldn't have been as confident in having those instances in the book, right? Or having those interactions in the book because they make the characters more robust. Their questions make the characters feel more well-rounded, and like their personalities are easy to understand. So without Elia, Jessica, Sarah, and Ella, you guys wouldn't even know who Cora was, like, at all.
Awesome, Sarah. Awesome. And now we've arrived at the final question, which is actually what I call a little scenario.
Okay.
So I've been to a lot of workshops for authors, and they've given some great advice. One of them that really stood out to me is that in this industry, you're not going to make a lot of money. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme, and your goals have to be realistic. I would also add to that and say that if you go down the path of being an author, there are two roads. One is to be an author. The other is to be known as an author. Two very different goals, two very different objectives. One is dedicated, again, to the craft. The other is dedicated to marketing. And the goals may interlap. They may be the same. But ultimately, as I said before, this is not an industry to get rich quick. If that was the case, myself, Sarah, many other people would be leaving our day jobs and just writing nonstop. But unfortunately, that is not the case. And some people get into this industry for the wrong reasons. And one expectation that I think a lot of people really put too much emphasis on is, you're going to be the next bestseller. There are exceptions to that rule, absolutely, but not every author is going to be a New York Times bestseller. That is not the case. No one is going to be just like that. Again, there are exceptions, but that's not the golden rule. And sometimes that's deflating for a lot of authors. So here's a little scenario, Sarah. Let's say you've been invited to a festival, a book festival, and you are hosting a workshop/seminar. And in that seminar, you have a room filled with aspiring authors from, students, young adults, children, possibly with their families. And you are asked to give a presentation on one aspect of the writer's journey. Out of the numerous topics you could discuss with them to go in such great length and detail, what is the one topic that you would like to share and discuss with them that could also be used as a pearl of wisdom to instill in them if they still want to pursue this industry?
Goodness. Do it scared. Write your story, and do it scared. There's going to be enough people telling you what you can't do that you just need to do it. Do it scared. Be brave enough to step out and say, the artwork that I'm getting ready to put into the world is worth something. And have that innate knowledge that, like, the thing you're creating is valuable and it has value out in the world. Do it scared. Even if your voice shakes, just write the thing. If this is something that brings you joy, if telling stories is the thing that helps you sleep better at night, do it fucking scared. And pardon my language, but like, do it fucking scared. Just step out. Because if that piece of information would have never been given to me, I would not be doing any of this. Like, I would still be at my 9-to-5 job where I was miserable and I didn't like what I was doing, and I didn't sleep well at night, and I was just angry at the world. And do it fucking scared. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. Yes, it's probably not going to be the breadwinner thing that you do, right? It may just end up being a hobby for you. But even with it being a hobby, if it brings you joy, it's worth every second that you spend in it for the return on seeing people's faces light up when they recognize a character and they see themselves there. And like hearing my and I'll never forget this day, my audiobook narrator did a Zoom call with me. And the first words out of her mouth was, "I love Cora so much. I can see myself in her and I can't wait to voice her." I got off that call and I cried because every second that I have poured into Cora spoke to someone. Do it fucking scared and get out there and just write the story that you want to see written. This may not make you $1 billion, and you may not have that nice shiny boat on the lake and the 60 bedroom, 40 bath house, right? But like, you're putting your creativity out there for people. Do it scared.
Damn straight, viewers and listeners. And with that, we conclude this incredible author's interview on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. I want to give a huge thank you to our guest, Sarah, for coming on the show. And Sarah, where can people find you on social media if they want to reach out? And in addition to your book coming out this week, do you have any other projects you would like to announce? And possibly any episodes that we can look forward to on your podcast?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So you can find me across Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all those places. Author SF Rogers or SF Rogers author. Either way will find me. I have blue hair. I'm not hard to miss, I promise. My books are available on Amazon, KU, and Audible. Execration of Autumn is available there right now. Isolation of Winter's Audible will probably not be available until the 1st of 2026, but that's just because of scheduling issues with the audiobook narrator. Isolation of Winter will be paperback available July 31st on Amazon. The ebook will be available August 1st. So there was a little bit of discrepancy in the days, but if you're wanting the ebook, the pre-order is live now. And it will be available on Kindle Unlimited. We have some upcoming episodes with one Cy Harold. He is a sci-fi author on Thursday on TikTok. We try to go live on Thursdays and do our interviews on TikTok. So I think that's everything. I've got a convention coming up this Saturday, JomoCon in Joplin, Missouri. You can come see me, come get autographs, say hi, shake my hand, do all the things. I'll be dressed up as the Witch Queen from my second book, Dahlia. So I'm pretty stoked about that. But yeah.
Awesome. I will link all those down below in the description of this video. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for another amazing author interview here on the show. Again, a huge thank you to Sarah for coming on the show. And hopefully this will not be the last time we see her on the show. In fact, viewers and listeners, if you want Sarah back for a follow-up interview for a future work that she is working on, comment down below, and if there's enough likes, then I will get Sarah back on the show. And also make sure to follow her on her podcast and give her all thumbs up and share, spread the word, because reviews and feedback help us indie creators. I cannot stress that enough. And as always, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe down below to stay up to date with the final episodes for the month of July. And be on the lookout for the launch of my newsletter for the month of August. I have a large group of new people that I am eager to showcase on the show and present with you all here in the interwebs. But until then, this is the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill signing out. Wish you all a wonderful day wherever you are in the world. And until next time, we'll see you all in the next episode. Take care and have a wonderful day.